few years, was fortunate enough to be able to open a bespoke boutique in Bangalore. For those who are not from Bangalore, and for those who are in Bangalore, I had my boutique in Kormangala, if you know that area. And other than that, simultaneously, because I had a little bit of, like, say, hands-on experience with customers, I got a break into teaching, education in fashion, and there I have been holding on to it for 6 years now. Through teaching, I came across something called as digital fashion, and thanks for interacting with students at all times. It kept me updated, and because I was updated, I came across something called as digital fashion and got so intrigued that a few months ago I took it upon myself to learn what the hell this is. And then we can call it hell because it is an endless hole inside the, like, it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I feel like an Alice here, and we are constantly finding new things, and it is evolving at breakneck speed. So yeah, just catching up, and this joining this cohort is a part of catching up, and if nothing, meet fellow designers. So hi everyone, very happy to meet you. Some of them I think I'm in touch with separately, like Ganishkar. I think we are in touch. Okay, so we also run a community, as in a WhatsApp community, where we are Indian digital fashion designers. Ganishkar happens to be a part of that, and we have been
Oh,
trying to meet.
wonderful. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we've been trying to meet and catch up, but then I think he also happened to know about your cohort, and now we got in touch with it. Yeah, with each other, right? So I think that this introduction naturally progresses to Ganishkar now. Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Let's go on.
Hello, I'm Ganishkar. I studied my fashion designing course in Chennai. Currently, for last 2 years, I'm working as a cloth 3D designer. Want to learn more? Joined here. That's it for me.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for coming. Um, who wants to go next? Akanksha, maybe?
Hi, so I'm Akanksha, finally a fashion design student from Army Institute of Fashion Design. I really wanted to, be a part of your session when you come to my college, but like I couldn't be there because I reported 2 days late to the institution. Um, so yeah, I feel like the fashion world is like really small, so it's like a very close knit group. So you're bound to find someone or the other. Like you're gonna bump into someone, especially in like in Ranagar, so but like people from other cities of India, I'd love to get to know you better. And I'm quite opinionated as a person, especially when it comes to fashion, textiles, and technology. So I truly, truly wish that we all can, like have interactive sessions and have, like healthy conversations. Yeah, that's it from my side.
Definitely. No, I love that. That's exactly what I want for this group as well. So I'm really glad you said that. So thank you. Um, Prarthana, do you want to go next?
Hello, I'm Pratna, and I'm currently doing my third year in NIFT in knitwear design. And digital fashion is actually a really new subject for me, so I don't really have any experience in it or in the industry. So, I mean, I guess that's it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is very interesting, so I'm glad that I get to be a part of this. So, thank you so much for this.
I'm glad you're here. And hopefully you'll leave this course knowing a lot more about digital fashion. So, Arfa, do you want to go next? I think you're still on mute.
Hello, good evening everyone. My name is Alfa Imran. I'm from Army Institute of Fashion and Design College from Bangalore. And right now I'm pursuing my third year BSc path. I'm here to learn more about future of fashion, and I want to know more about it from this platform. That's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Can we have maybe Aishwarya next?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, ma'am. My name is Shindeshwarya. I'm from Maharashtra. I'm studying in Army Institute of Fashion and Design, currently pursuing my third year. Actually, I've always been into like computers and all, and when I came to know about digital fashion, I was like, yeah, this is the field like I want to work more on. And in my college, like I attended your lecture, offline lecture. It was
Okay.
very,
Mhm.
Yeah, it was very fruitful. I got to know about blockchain a little bit. I want to know more about it. I want to learn more about Meta, and I think this is the right platform too.
Okay, I'm really glad. Okay, I'm glad some of you, enjoyed the offline lectures, and that's why you've come to the online session as well. Today's introduction might have a little bit of an overlap, but I think moving forward, there won't be. So, yeah, if you have any questions today, feel free to ask, especially since you've already kind of seen some of today's material. You might have more questions than the others. But yeah, thanks for coming. Um, can we have maybe Kavyashree next?
Hi everyone, I'm Kavya. I work as a social media analyst in NF thing in Bangalore. So, according to my opinion, digital fashion is very new topic for me, and I'm looking forward to learn more and discover more and explore my interests. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kavya. And then we have Sanjana.
Hi, I'm Sanjana. I did my UG in fashion designing and currently pursuing PG in boutique management course. And I did like digital fashion course from Udemy. And I thought I need to learn more about, so I got into this.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank
Thank you. Yeah. And Shashank, have we done Shashank?
Hi, hi Ashwini.
Hi.
Uh, Glad to be here. So I have been doing 3D fashion and digital fashion for like last three years. Currently, I'm
Okay.
working with a startup brand based out of Bombay. So we are trying to digitize in ethnic wear garment into 3D garments. So currently I am looking onto it. So I got to know about your cohort and session from my fellow batchmate Pranati. I think she's also maybe known to you.
Yeah, you mean
So
Pranati Parikh?
yes, right.
Okay, okay, yes, I do know her. Yeah. Oh,
Uh-huh.
wonderful. Okay. Amazing. Well,
So
yeah.
I sorry.
Oh no, go on.
So I got to know about this session from her story. So I tried. Let's give it a try and see what's your knowledge of the industry that can help me out with it and to look further into this.
Amazing. Okay, and especially those of you who have some experience in digital fashion already, I would love to hear your perspectives as well. If at any point you want to share something, please let me know. Would love to have that as well. So thank you for joining.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And can we have Sushma?
Hi, Ashwini. First of all, thank you so much for putting up this cohort. I think this gives us two chances. One is basically, as Sashank said, to utilize the knowledge that you are going to share with us, and another is networking with people who are excited about the 3D space. So for me, I'm between a career transition. I have worked with fashion brands before, and now I'm, moving on to a new age fashion brand next month. So I thought this is a perfect time to utilize a cohort and contribute to it how much I can, and I can also learn from the young people around here.
Amazing. Thank you, Sushma. Um, I'm echoing. No, that's fine now. And I think we have Bhavya as well, who I've actually been to her university as well. Maybe Bhavya wants to do a short introduction as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Bhavya. Nice to meet everyone here. It's a very great opportunity, and I'm Ashwini's fan, so that's why I'm here to support her.
Vice versa. I'm your fan as well. So.
Okay, I'm also having a career transition. I was in industry and then I have started to teach in Anant University, but also I am slowly building up my brand, which is more inspired with 3D, focus on 3D as well as 3D, as well as all the digital fashion which is going to launch. So that's why I thought like it is a great platform for me to be here and to learn more from Ashwini and then I think grow together with this journey. Thank you so much, Ashwini, for having me here.
Thank you for joining. Honestly, I'm so inspired by so many of you who already have so many years of experience in industry who, are still really keen to come and learn. Despite there are a lot of young people here as well to join with them and learn. Like it's very inspiring. It's amazing. It's beautiful to see that. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. And finally, I think we have someone else who joined now, Varjesh. Varjesh, do you want to introduce yourself? Just a quick intro. Okay, maybe we can come back to that, I think. Oh, no worries. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Well, thank you for joining anyway. And I think we have one last person, Roja Ravi, who I also know from one of the universities. Would be great to have a little intro from you as well. Okay, that's all right. We can get started. And anyone else who joins perhaps can introduce themselves at the end. But I'm going to share my screen again. We can get started. Okay, so this is how the sessions are structured. As you know, there are 6 sessions that I've planned right now. So the first session is today, which is more of an introduction, and we're going to end with a bit of a brainstorm. And the second session is a WebXR workshop. So that's the WebXR/virtual reality workshop that we're going to be doing. The third session on March 21st, which is next Thursday, is going to be a continuation of the workshop. So you can, continue to work on it. And if you've worked on it during the week and you have some questions, we can discuss some of that. And then the fourth session, we're going to be doing presentations where everyone can present a bit of what they've been working on based on the workshop that we've done. The fifth and the sixth session will be guest speakers who, as I said, I'm going to be introducing them shortly. Well, online, I'm going to be posting who they are shortly, and you'll be meeting them in April. So for today's introduction session, I'm going to start off with, first of all, a little introduction of me and everything I've done, since many of you might know, but many of you may not know as well, especially the people who haven't seen me offline in classes may not know as much about my background. And I think it's useful to share so that you know what sort of questions I may be able to answer and what I might be able to help you out with. So I graduated from London College of Fashion, as I said, and while I was at university, I had my own startup. So it was a sustainable fashion production startup called Artsy. And so basically what I was trying to do with that is use zero waste pattern cutting methods and digitize them using AI. So trying to automate those methods so that we can reduce waste during production more easily with the click of a button. And I won some awards for that and some funding as well, including an award by Microsoft, which enabled me to actually travel to Silicon Valley and work further with Microsoft teams to develop my idea. And that was part of the reason I got introduced to digital fashion quite early on, because I met a couple of people like Kitty from the Garage, who was working on digital fashion projects. I also won a couple of university-wide projects, awards like the Student Enterprise Challenge and the Creative Enterprise Awards, as well as the Mayor's Competition, which is basically across universities in London. So I got a bit of funding from that as well. And so I continued my startup for almost 2 years using all of these different resources. My work's also been featured in some of all of these magazines that you can see here: Vogue Business, Forbes, Evening Standard, Wonderland. And these are some more. So as I said, while I was at university for 2 years, I worked on Artsy. And then around the time I was graduating was when I really kind of got an interest in digital fashion, and specifically, in Clo 3D and virtual reality. Rather than before that, I was more leaning towards things like fashion production and digitizing fashion production, which is a little bit different from the use cases for the metaverse. And so I started to explore not just Clo 3D, but also virtual reality spaces and different VR tools. And I came up with a fully digital fashion collection. So it was the first fully digital fashion collection at LCF. And it was during COVID as well, so it was a great time to make a fully digital fashion collection. And yeah, this is what I came up with. And it's inspired by, farming, and the fact that farming actually, ties in so closely with fashion, but we don't really think of it that way. The first step of the supply chain is always farming, whether that's farming cotton or farming silk, but we don't really have that association. And so I wanted to really emphasize that. So this is the space that I built, and this was, you know, about 6 months after I started using Flow3D or any of these softwares. So it's really, it may look relatively complicated maybe, but it's actually a very kind of basic experimental space that I started off with, and something that, you know, most people can achieve within the first 6 months of kind of using these softwares. So the garments that I made are on Flow3D, and you can see I've made a sort of magical tree, and these garments sort of hang from those trees. So it's like these women are plucking the garments from the tree. It's almost like this irony of kind of, you know, instead of plucking fruit, they're plucking garments to really show the connection between the garments and farming. And a lot of these other features, like the tree and like those, you know, the different fruits and things like that, those are all created using VR tools. So one is a VR painting tool called Tilt Brush. And so, you know, you can basically just play around with it and draw in 3D space. So it's a very intuitive way of kind of easily 3D modeling things. And obviously, if you have a virtual reality headset, it's very easy to use this. But even if you don't, it can be used in combination with Unity. So you can download the Tilt Brush package as part of Unity and use it in that as well. And I'm going to be going into details of this later, but also feel free to ask me questions if there are specific bits of this that you want to explore and try out. Maybe you can like write down your questions and we can come back to it at the end. And also Gravity Sketch is another tool that I used, another virtual reality painting tool. Again, that's something that can be used on a virtual reality headset, but it can also be used on an iPad. So that's quite interesting. Again, it's actually a free tool, free to download. So if you do have access to an iPad or a VR headset, it's worth playing around with as well. And I love to show this example because it's one of the examples of something I made quite early on. So I think it's, yeah, it's very experimental and it's more fun. It doesn't have as many kind of boundaries. You know, there's no, like, it's not a building, there are no four walls. But that's the amazing thing about digital fashion, especially about, you know, virtual reality, because you can create anything that you dream of, which you may not be able to do in real life. Like this collection, I would not have been able to make in real life simply because of, you know, the different limitations in terms of resources, in terms of just, you know, physics, things like gravity. So yeah, it was really exciting. And, you know, after that, a lot of other students at LCF started making digital collections as well. So it's kind of one of the first collections that inspired many more. So as soon as I graduated, I knew I wanted to do a digital fashion job, and so I started looking out for opportunities. And so I came across Republique, which is actually the first fully digital fashion company based in the UK. And so our main kind of business model, I joined as, so the founder is James, who has, you know, decades of experience in advertising. And I joined as the first full-time employee, so the first like fashion designer on the team, basically. And so him and I were kind of brainstorming, and his idea for the brand really was that he wanted something like, you might have come across something called DressX, and if you haven't, it's worth looking into. DressX has digital fashion from many different digital fashion designers around the world on their website. And the concept behind DressX, as well as Republique, is that digital fashion collections are created. For example, these garments that you see on the screen. Really cool digital garments are made, but they're not ever produced in real life. They're just made digitally, and then when someone sends in a picture, so say I take a picture in, you know, just like a little black dress, I can send that in, and then these garments are actually photoshopped onto my garment to make it look like I'm wearing these garments in real life. And that's, you know, really exciting, because then you can post that on Instagram, you can share it with whoever you want. And especially today, you know, when Instagram is such a big part of our lives and social media is such a big part of our lives, we may, you know, walk into class in our pajamas, but we probably wouldn't post a picture on Instagram in our pajamas. And so digital identities really matter more and more for, you know, the younger generations, from Gen X to Gen Z to Gen Alpha, who are kind of today's teenagers and stuff. They really care about their digital identities. And so this was really kind of tapping into that. And also the fact that so many of us buy fast fashion, buy really kind of cheap clothing that we may not wear again just for social media. And this is a way to kind of avoid that from happening. Because then instead of buying those cheap garments, only using it once, you can just buy that garment digitally where it has a much smaller carbon footprint. You don't have to worry about not wearing it again and things like that. And at the same time, you get the excitement of trying out a new outfit and trying out something really exciting and cool. This is one of the collections that we did, the bubble collection. So obviously you can see this is, these are some really crazy garments that in real life you would probably not get to wear. Maybe someone like Lady Gaga could wear it once to like the Oscars or something, but you and I don't get to wear garments like this. And even if we did, it would be really expensive. We wouldn't have an occasion to wear it. It just doesn't make a lot of practical sense. Whereas digitally, you can try something like this on and have fun with it with maybe $10 or $20 without having to spend too much money on it compared to what you would in real life. So this was one of our other collections. This was a collection that we did for dogs. Those of you who have pets know that, getting an outfit on your pet can sometimes be a little bit difficult. And so we had this request to make a jacket for a dog, and so we sold some of these as well. This is another collection, the Cyber collection that we launched. This was a campaign that we did for Coach. And this was a denim collection that we did. So this is an example of the garment actually photoshopped onto a model. As you can see, it looks quite realistic. You can't really tell she's wearing digital garments, but the garment still looks really cool and interesting. And this was specifically in collaboration with Monier Ferrez, which is, kind of like the Mincha or the Nika in France. They stock a lot of different luxury brands, including Burberry, one of the brands that they stock. And so this was with Monier Ferrez and Burberry. So they were doing a photo shoot for Burberry handbags. So they basically got this model in a black tank top and black shorts to walk around all over Paris and get these really beautiful candid shots holding the Burberry bag. And instead of having to do, normally they would have to do lots of, costume changes, outfit changes along the way. But for this, they stuck to that same, black tank top and black shorts the whole time, and then just sent it over to us. So we were able to digitally Photoshop some really cool garments onto the model to then kind of complete that photo shoot and make it look more interesting and exciting. These are some more garments and some more images from that same shoot for Burberry and Monier Ferrez. So these are obviously, again, garments that would not be very realistic in real life, or at least very difficult to make, that we were able to do digitally, including some of these. On that third picture, you can see there's a sort of lighting effect, a sort of iridescent effect that's created using 3D lights, which in real life you would only be able to do in kind of studio lighting and not with natural sunlight. So that was really cool to be able to do that. Now, the problem that we came across, though, when we were working on this is that photoshopping these garments onto models is very time consuming. And because it's very time consuming, it's also not very efficient in terms of money, because you're spending a lot of time, a lot of money on actually photoshopping these images, and it's still sometimes not perfect. So then we tied up with an AI startup called Yokai that was Paris-based. It was a small team, and we basically worked with them to kind of digitize this whole process. And so they were able to use AI to, within Clo3D, normally you would change the size of the garment based on the model. You would have to change the pose, the lighting, the shadows, all of these different things, and then do the Photoshop job. Whereas with AI, the AI was actually able to estimate the position of the lighting, the color of the lighting, the pose, the size, all of these different things, and automatically Photoshop the garment onto the model. So that reduced obviously our timing, and it reduced the amount of money we're spending on it massively, and it was super successful. By the time I was leaving, about a year later, we were able to automate about 95% of these clothes. Only maybe 5% of the clothes that were more complicated we would sometimes need to go in and manually adjust. So that was one of the collaborations that really got me into AI as well. And I think what was really interesting about Republic more than anything is that I had just graduated and I didn't know very much about digital fashion beyond making that digital fashion collection that I just showed you about farming. That was all of my knowledge about digital fashion. And obviously I knew a little bit about AI because of the startup that I was working on. But aside from that, I was very new to everything, but we just kind of jumped into it. It was a startup. As I said, I was the only full-time employee at the time alongside the founder, who doesn't really have a fashion background, who only has an advertising background. So any project that came our way, we would just kind of figure it out. And funnily enough, we managed to figure it out. Sometimes we had our fails, but we usually managed to figure out, including automating this whole process, which was really, really cool. And I learned so much about AI in the process. This is a project we did for Breyer suits, so we digitized some of their suits for them. And I think the reason I usually put this into my presentations is also because I think this had a really good kind of level of detail. And I think it's nice to have pieces in your portfolio in general when you're doing digital fashion that have more details, that, with a bit of formal wear, things like padded shoulders, all that kind of stuff, just to kind of show that you're able to get those details in rather than just the silhouettes within digital fashion. This was with ASOS. The project that we did with ASOS was really interesting because ASOS is this huge fast fashion company. Their revenue is like billions of dollars. They, ship out tons of fast fashion every single day. And one of the things that they do, like many other brands, is influencer marketing. And with influencer marketing, they basically send garments to influencers all over the world, and those influencers wear them, take pictures, and then, after one picture, most of those clothes are just thrown away because these influencers get so many clothes every single day. They don't really keep and use all of it. So what ASOS wanted to do, they wanted to reduce their carbon footprint. So one of the ideas we gave them was to have a digital replica of their garments, and instead of shipping garments to influencers for them to wear once, take a picture and throw away, the influencer sends us an image of them, and we Photoshop digitally a garment, the digital replica of the garment from ASOS, so that they can still post a selfie in ASOS's garment, but actually it would be the digital replica of the garment rather than the garment itself. So that was really successful. They managed to reduce their carbon footprint significantly. So that was, a good example of how digital fashion can be used in a more sustainable way for sustainability as well. This was also for ASOS. So one of the other projects we did for ASOS, the first project we did, in fact, in the metaverse, which is in a sort of almost like a gaming platform, but it's more a social virtual reality platform. The interesting thing about this platform that's called Decentraland is that all the assets within these platforms are on a blockchain. So I'm not going to go too much into the details of that, but that means that you can, actually have ownership of these garments on the blockchain. So when you go into this platform, it's like, any gaming website that you might go into, except within that space, when you buy something, if you buy land or if you buy a garment, those things are actually owned by you, and that can be proved by the blockchain. So that just means that these assets that you're buying within the platform are much more valuable than any digital assets that you would buy on, a random gaming platform that doesn't have this feature. So this was our first time actually stepping into, the world of kind of Web 3D as well as metaverse. So what we did is, again, in collaboration with Monia Ferez, we built this shop and displayed some of these garments and bags within it. And you could actually click on these different items, on these shoes, on these bags, and buy them. And you could, your avatar could wear them, but you could also own them as an NFT. So it also had inherent value, and you could resell that item to another person and have that proof of ownership when you're reselling it. These are the suits by Breyer that we digitized for Decentraland as well. Okay, so this is another really cool project that I love to discuss because this is the platform that we're going to be working with for our workshop in the next 2 sessions. And this is WebXR. It's super easy, super accessible, completely free. And once I actually show you this space, after we're done, I'm going to tell you what software was used to build it. And it's a software that I'm sure all of you already know how to use. It's literally that simple. So within this platform, this is recorded within the space when it was completely empty, not during a live event, but we built this space for a live event. And we actually had speakers from all over the world come in as avatars and speak within this setting. So we had a conversation around digital fashion, and we had these 7 different scenes and 7 different topics that experts spoke about. And the amazing thing is, like I said, this space is so accessible that there was someone on their way to the airport and they were able to log in on their smartphone as an avatar and speak in this space. So it's very, you don't need a virtual reality headset. You don't even need a very kind of a gaming or heavy duty laptop. You can literally do this on your phone. You do need a laptop or an iPad to actually build within this space, but that's quite basic, which I think all of us have access to. So. So we can't all go in at once, but up to 8 people can actually go to this website, and you can check out the space even now if you want to. So if any of you are interested, you can, go on your smartphone or open up a new tab and type in framevr.io/digital fashion, and you might even bump into each other there. So. Okay, so that's the space. So the software that was actually used to make that is Photoshop, or you can use basically any image making software, which is why I absolutely love this website and this platform, and that's the one that we're going to be exploring. I think I'm just going to come back here for a minute and see how everyone's doing. I think I went quite fast. Does anyone have any questions at the moment?
Actually, a few with respect to whatever you have told, but then I think they can wait for the end.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to wait for the end for? Okay.
Yeah, the softwares that I wanted to know that you used, or the platforms for blockchain and all that. Can we I think we can take.
Yeah, we can. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Sure. So unless there aren't any kind of if there are some immediate pressing questions that maybe we can't move forward without, then you can shout them out. If not, we can. Okay, I think we can move forward then and then come back. Okay. So another event that I hosted, so this was actually with the Digital Maker Collective, which is it's a voluntary collective for students, staff, and alumni from University of the Arts London to come together and kind of explore different technologies. And this is another event that I hosted with them as part of the Digital Maker Collective. This was on a slightly more advanced platform. So this was actually for a tech event in Barcelona called I Am Weekend. And for that event, we wanted to host this kind of panel about fashion sustainability and digital fashion. But we also wanted to kind of finish with this show-stopping element that was really interesting and exciting and really captured people's attention. And so basically what we made is, as you can see here, we made this black jacket, and there were basically these red dots on the black jacket that you can see, and the red dots keep increasing. And that basically shows the carbon emissions, the increase in carbon emissions over the last century. So for people who are, more visual, people who understand data in a more visual way, this was a really easy way to kind of show that difference and show that impact that we're having on the planet, but also in a really fun, interesting way that's relevant to fashion and fashion designers and basically anyone interested in fashion. A project that I did with the Fashion Innovation Agency was the Catwalk Motion Transfer project. And so basically what we did is we took, archival fashion week footage. And so we took a runway footage where this model walked down the ramp, and we took that data using AI. So the AI looked at that video and basically extracted the skeletal data and the way that the avatar moves, and then transferred that data onto a clothed 3D avatar. So the implications of this, while this is more, this is a little more technologically advanced, we had engineers as well working on this within the group. I think the implications are really interesting because, for instance, if you have, Kendall Jenner or Gigi Hadid or someone who has a very specific kind of walk and they're really famous for the way that they walk on the ramp, you can actually use that data and transfer that onto a digital avatar. So if you had a digital avatar of Kendall Jenner, you could also transfer her walk onto that avatar, and then you have, not just the avatar, but the avatar walking in an authentic way as well. So that was a really interesting project that we did. So I want to talk a little bit now about my work at Meta, at least as much as I'm able to share. And a lot of people are curious about kind of how does the day-to-day look. And so I want to share a little bit about what I used to work on there within research and development. So I was basically, the main thing that kind of, I guess, my role was a fashion consultant to the product team. So, really about what does fashion want from tech? So, in the fashion industry, we have a lot of different problems that could be solved by tech, but, which are the ones that we are really dying to solve? What are our problem points as designers? That was one of the things that I was really contributing on. The second thing is that I was creating digital garments for experimentation. And basically to build a database. So for machine learning, which is for artificial intelligence, you need this huge database of, whatever it is, in this case, digital garments, to be able to really understand, how do things drape, and then using that information, the AI learns how to drape things on its own, how to do things on its own. And to really build that database, you need people making those garments in the first place. So one of the things that I was doing was actually building that digital database. Another thing I was doing was actually experimenting with different formats and different softwares to kind of try to figure out, within Meta, like with our virtual reality headset, for example, what is the best software that works? What is the best format that works for digital fashion to be able to import and export from the virtual reality headset? And so it was all very much kind of very early stage projects. So nothing was at the stage of integration, for example. So we weren't putting anything into Instagram. We weren't putting anything into our VR devices. It was purely kind of back end trying to figure out, okay, what can we do in maybe 5 years time? How can we change our VR devices in 5 years time to support fashion, or in 10 years time? And really trying to figure out where fashion is going to go within the metaverse and how we can build for that and be the leaders within that space. So one of the questions that I get a lot is metaverse or artificial intelligence, as if they're kind of competing softwares. But in reality, I believe that they're not competing softwares, that they both go hand in hand. For example, one of the things that we did at Meta, which, we basically worked on metaverse digital fashion using AI for all of our projects. So one of the things that we were doing, so for example, we've all seen text to image AI generation. So once you put in like a prompt saying, for example, like a cat wearing sunglasses, you get a picture of a cat wearing sunglasses. But it's difficult to turn that into 3D because you need, somebody behind the scenes, a 3D artist actually building these meshes behind the scenes. They need to build, a 3D essentially face of a cat wearing sunglasses. But we were trying to automate that process using AI, and that's a huge leap, because to be able to do text to image is relatively simple, but image to 3D is a much bigger leap, and you need AI to be able to kind of automate that process and automatically generate 3D models using text prompts or using image prompts. Like, for example, on Instagram, I'm sure you've all seen those little avatars, right? Like, you have a little avatar of yourself, you can change the hair color, you can change the hairstyle, you can change the clothes, you can change the shoes. But what if you wanted, to take a selfie, to take a picture of yourself in your outfit exactly as you are right now, and you wanted that outfit and that look to automatically be transferred to your avatar? So that would require image to 3D as well, because then your avatar needs to wear this 3D mesh. But that information needs to be derived from an image. And if you have someone, physically looking at that image and then trying to build a 3D, garment, then that takes a very long time. You need someone behind the scenes. It's also expensive. Whereas if you're able to use AI to do that, then you automatically go from image to 3D. So your avatar can wear the same thing as you within a split second, including, you can have details. It doesn't have to be like a pre-made garment that just looks similar to your garment. It can be exactly your garment. Another really important thing that a lot of big companies are working on is the problem of interoperability. So we talk about the metaverse a lot, and essentially the metaverse is a fully connected virtual reality platform where all the different platforms within VR are all mutually connected to one another. And in reality, this doesn't actually exist, and it's never really going to exist in a way, because you have, within virtual reality, you have something like Decentraland, and then you have a video game maybe like Fortnite, and then you have a different platform. You have all these different platforms, but they're not connected to each other. So they're all kind of their own mini metaverses, but there's no one big metaverse. Now, one of the big ways to kind of bring that connectivity and make the metaverse more real and more make it actually exist is to connect these platforms. And one of the main ways to do that is to have a consistent identity across these platforms. So for instance, if I buy a dress, I wouldn't buy it if I could only wear it, in the house. I would want to be able to wear it to multiple locations if I buy an outfit. But in digital fashion and in gaming and virtual reality currently, you can't do that. If you're within a certain gaming platform and you buy a garment, you can only wear it within that platform. You can't take that garment across different platforms. Unless, of course, you buy it within all those other platforms, which means you're spending more money, and the style of the garment is different, and it's just, maybe that same garment is not even available on another platform. And so the way to kind of really change that, and the way Meta is trying to change that, is to automate that interoperability. And interoperability basically means having access to the same assets across platforms. So if you buy something in Fortnite, to be able to take that to say, I have ownership of this garment and I will use it across various different VR platforms, that's interoperability. And for instance, you can see here on this image, this first image, there's this bobblehead in a green t-shirt, and there you can't change much about the outfit. You can only change the color of the t-shirt. Whereas the second one, you can change the style a little bit more. It's more of an animated style. The third one is maybe more of a manga style. Again, very different from the other two. So to take that same garment and put it, so this Netflix t-shirt, for example, to put it in this platform as well as in this first platform, that means that you need to take that garment and change it into different forms and different formats based on the platform that you're building for. And that, again, is a lot of work for a 3D designer behind the scenes, and it's also hard to ensure that you're not having to pay for that garment again in different platforms. So the way to do that is, again, using AI. So if the AI gets one specific garment, for example, if it gets a garment from a fashion brand, say Gucci makes a certain kind of dress, and if the AI is able to take that and convert that into multiple different formats for all the different VR platforms, and then also ensure ownership of that, then you have what is very close to interoperability, because then once you buy it, you're able to use it across platforms. And that's great for the fashion industry as well, because that means that if you're able to use it across platforms, you can charge a bit more. You can say, okay, this I can guarantee you can use on every platform, rather than saying, you have to pay so much for only one platform. And then if, the person's friends say, oh, let's, switch to another platform, suddenly they're not using that garment anymore. They don't have ownership of that garment anymore, maybe if they're not within that platform. So interoperability is one of kind of the biggest challenges in digital fashion and the metaverse in general, and it's one of the big problems that companies like Meta are trying to solve using artificial intelligence. I hope that made some sense. We'll talk about it a little more in detail if you guys have questions. Okay, so now I wanted to show you some brands and some cool people doing things within digital fashion. First is the Institute of Digital Fashion. They're one of the kind of pioneers of digital fashion, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff. So one of the people you should definitely look out for. If you're on Instagram, you can look them up. This is their Instagram handle. This is just, I'm showing you a couple of different brands and a couple of different companies doing cool things just for inspiration. So you can see, you've seen my work, but that's a very, 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 very small segment of what digital fashion is around the world. And this give you a better idea of what else other companies are doing in the world with digital fashion. Ouroboros is another one. Ouroboros is a luxury digital fashion brand, very high prices. They derive all of their inspiration from biomimicry. So very cool concept, really kind of high-end digital fashion brand. And that's their Instagram. Sorry about my voice, I'm just recovering from a cold, so I sound a little bit croaky. Next is JessX, the one that I mentioned to you, which is, it has a similar kind of business concept to Republique. And I think they also do their own garments, but they also have a lot of garments from different designers all over the world. So it's also a great way to discover other digital fashion designers. You can go on the website, find different digital fashion designers, and then find those designers on platforms like Instagram and, connect with them, see what their work is about, follow them. JessX on Instagram. This is the Fabricant, again, one of the kind of really leaders in this space, also one of the people doing a lot of kind of NFTs and blockchain and things as well. Yeah, definitely worth checking them out as well. The Fashion Innovation Agency. So I've worked with the Fashion Innovation Agency a lot, and they're incredibly knowledgeable. They do a lot of really interesting projects like that. This one that I just showed you, actually. This one where we extracted the information from the model and then projected it onto an avatar. So that was a project by them. So they do a lot of really interesting projects, and they work with both designers and engineers. So it's quite interesting. They do quite tech heavy, really interesting projects. Now, Artifact is another one that many of you might have heard of. They're a super cool sneaker brand. So they basically started selling their digital sneakers online, and they started getting sold out very quickly. They were selling them as NFTs, and then they started selling digital products. They had a digital shoe, but you also got ownership of a physical shoe as well when you bought the digital shoe. And yeah, they're one of the leaders, especially in their sneaker space, and they were now bought over by Nike. Digital Fashion Week NYC is again another platform to see what's happening in digital fashion, but to also again find other digital fashion designers through their platform, because they display work by a lot of digital fashion designers from all over the world. And this is a book, finally, for those of you who are interested. It's a very, very good book, very interesting book about the metaverse and how it will revolutionize everything, by Matthew Ball. So it starts off with how the metaverse started, and the first time the word metaverse was coined, and then goes on to talk about where it's headed. And Matthew Ball is very much an authority in this space, so I think he's probably right about the future of metaverse as well as things like digital fashion. So these are some softwares for you to check out. Most of these are free platforms except for Clo3D, which is a paid one, but if you're a student, you can get a 50% student discount. And Frame VR, the first one, is the one that we're going to try out and do as part of our workshop. And these other ones, yeah, you can try out on your own. Spark AR is by Meta, and SnapLens is by Snapchat, and they're both augmented reality platforms. Really, really great to use, free to download and use. And there are also loads of tutorials online on YouTube on how to use these. They have templates where you can just kind of drag and drop as well. So super user-friendly. Blender is a little bit more complicated, but it's great to kind of, I'm not an expert at Blender, but even just knowing the basics, you can achieve a lot through Blender. You can do basic 3D modeling. You can do a lot of 3D modeling, but even just knowing the basics, you can do some initial 3D modeling. You can do things like, create your own buttons and things for Clo3D. You can also, if you need to import things and export things in different formats for different softwares, Blender is a great kind of in-between kind of way to be able to do that. So you can import it into Blender and export it in different format, or maybe reduce the number of vertices so you can reduce the size of the 3D object, things like that. Anything you need, Blender is free and great to use for that. DAZ 3D is for avatars. Again, very interesting, very fun to play around with. That's also free software. There are some additional kind of paid add-on features for it, but it is mostly a free software. And then there's TurboSquid and CGI Trader, which are basically 3D models that you can download online to put into your project. So whatever platform you're using for your project, you can download 3D models from here and put it in. And these have a lot of free 3D models as well. So as long as you tick the option free, you might get free avatars, free anything. You can look for a free tree, a free house, free anything, and you can get a free 3D model on one of these websites. And then Clo3D is probably the one that you're all most familiar with or have at least heard of, which is for digital fashion. And that's how all of those clothes were made for Republique as well as for my final collection. That is a paid platform, but it's obviously hands down the best platform for designers, specifically for fashion designers, because you can actually see how garments drape. You can drape them, you can pin them up, you can do absolutely anything you can do with real life and fabric on Clo3D. And yeah, but it is a paid platform. Apart from Clo3D, there's also Optitex, there's Browsbear's V-Stitcher, which is a really great platform as well. So there are a couple of different platforms that have these capabilities, but Clo is probably the most popular one amongst them. Okay, so now we can move on to questions, and then we can come back and do a bit of a brainstorm session after that. Okay.
Yes. So you mentioned blockchain, you mentioned NFT. I have been wondering for a while now. I have not had time to research on it. That how does one indie designer approach NFT, and how does this blockchain work? If you can give a slight.
Yeah. So I'm not a blockchain expert, just a disclaimer, but I have created a couple of NFTs a couple of years ago, honestly, just to kind of, because I was curious like you, and I didn't really continue to work in this space because I also kind of have I think it's good for everyone to explore it, but was kind of a little bit unsure about the sustainability side of things. But I actually specifically explored a blockchain called Tezos, which unfortunately I'm not sure if it exists anymore, but I will find out. But that's basically this collectively owned blockchain that's kind of, at the time, it was the kind of lowest carbon footprint blockchain. So it was very sustainable, and it was co-owned by everyone. So it was very much, it seemed like the most, I guess, sustainable, ethical option to me at the time. And that's the one that I explored. And it was within a certain platform called Hic et Nunc, which I think is definitely non-existent now. But let me put it in the chat for you anyway. think at Nunk, and it was the Tezos blockchain. Or maybe the platform is gone, but the blockchain is still there. So I can also send you, actually, let me send you another link as well. Of we explored it together as part of the Digital Maker Collective. And when we were exploring it, we actually made a sort of tutorial of it. So if that tutorial still exists on YouTube, maybe you can still go check it out. I don't fully remember the steps myself, but it was, but yeah, I think it's definitely something you need to be really careful of, especially because now I think blockchain is not actually legal in India. So there's that. And then also, like, when you create a wallet for your blockchain, that can be quite dangerous as well, because then you're obviously putting in your real life money into that. And then when you're transferring that, at certain points you have to enter wallet addresses to send money across to actually create your NFT. And when you're doing that, even if one character, one symbol changes, that money goes to basically a different wallet, and then it's basically impossible to undo that. So you've lost that money. So I advise you to be really cautious while exploring that. And definitely, if there is someone who's kind of an expert at that, who at the Digital Maker Collective, there were a couple of people who were really good with it. So I think it's advisable to try to explore it with them rather than on your own. Okay, I'm not able to find it right now, but I'm just going to send that to you on the chat a little bit later. I'll just note that down. Okay, but that's a great question though. It's a very, very interesting space. I feel like it's quite a little bit risky and a little bit nascent, especially in India, considering, it's still illegal and things. But yeah, it's interesting.
I know a lot of companies that are actually establishing their roots in different countries after being in India, so that they work around the illegal
blockchain
aspect of it.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
I'm sure it's not really
it's like
safe
loopholes.
yet.
And
It's a loophole, but then also, because we are digital designers, there is a certain lure to get into the NFT space, because we are creating stuff of our own, and we're also putting our design process and thought in it.
Absolutely.
So that's what makes me curious about it. The second thing that I wanted to ask was, again, very interesting thing that you brought up, that AI is now able to make images which can then be created to 3D. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a few softwares that are existing which can help, but they are very expensive right now and out of reach of the common public. I think Levi's collaborated with somebody like that. Yes. Is there anything that is, by far related, or as in, let me put it this way, is there anything that's in the reach of somebody who's just starting to be a digital designer? Or is there something that we can work with, like Unity, or we can work with 2-3 softwares and create something like that? Is that possible?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to AI 3D models, to be honest, I don't remember coming across any that are kind of, really kind of up to scratch, but also freely available. I mean, it's worth just kind of Googling it and seeing if there's anything new out there. It might be a while since I looked it up as well, but I think it is maybe still a little bit more in the pipeline. I think definitely 2 years from now, you'll have something decent. But I think it's still a question of time.
I'm not surprised if nothing of that sort exists yet.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to it in the future. And
definitely.
I would want to be the first few ones to know.
Definitely. No, that's a great vision to have, because I think it'll be such an incredible tool, right? It's just, I think maybe, especially considering I think these big companies are still working towards it, I suspect that there's not anything that's high quality out there yet that's accessible. But we should stay in touch on this group chat to make sure that if anyone comes across anything, we share it with each other so we can all get on it, jump on it immediately and try it out and test it. And
definitely.
But
that's
great
all
question.
I had for now.
Okay, great questions. Yeah, that was really interesting. Anyone else who has any questions at the moment, or are you happy to move forward? And also, there are no silly questions, right? Because I know that some of you, obviously, like Sonia, have a lot more experience in digital fashion, and so she's asking some of these really smart questions that I know can be a little bit intimidating. Whereas, maybe some of you are a bit confused, oh wait, but what do you actually mean by what is blockchain, or what is Clo 3D? I haven't come across it. feel free to ask me all of those questions as well. For anyone who hasn't come across these things, like there's no stupid questions, so please feel free to ask, yeah? Okay, so we're going to move forward to the brainstorming session. I'm just going to share my screen again and open this up.
Like, I have a question.
Oh yeah, sure.
What is a blockchain and NFT? Can you explain in detail, please?
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to explain to the best of my ability, because I think it is quite like difficult to explain, and I'm not sure I even understand it myself 100%, despite like being involved in it for like quite a while now. So basically, blockchain is okay. So let me put it simply, right? So for example, when I have a certain like image, you know, I have a digital image. I create an image on Photoshop and I have it saved on my computer. So I can say, this image, you know, I created it, it's on my computer, I have it, right? But in reality, if I tell you that, like, you don't have to believe me. You can say, oh, maybe you took that image from someone else, maybe it's not an original image of yours. Like, how do you know that I actually have what I say I have, right? So blockchain is a way to ensure ownership. So in blockchain, if I had stored that same digital image on blockchain, then say all of us were part of the blockchain, which blockchain requires a lot of people to kind of be like keepers of that blockchain. Then what happens? That image exists on all of our computers, and all of us can see that that image belongs to Ashwini. So you don't even need to ask me. You know that that is my image. I have ownership of it. I have full ownership of it. So that's blockchain, where everyone has all of that information, so you can really guarantee ownership. So it's sort of almost like a community thing, right? So like everyone on the blockchain has all of the information. And so anyone on the blockchain can kind of verify that information. And the way that right now, especially the way blockchain is being used the most is in the finance industry. So for example, right now we trust banks, right? Like you go to HDFC and you say, okay, how much money do I have in my account? And they say you have 40,000 rupees in your account, and you believe them because, you know, you've deposited your cash with them and they have it. But in reality, again, like you're trusting that one entity, whereas if HDFC Bank suddenly tomorrow ceases to exist, then how do I prove to everyone else that I had 40,000 rupees in the bank, right? And so the finance industry is really starting to use blockchain to guarantee ownership of money and kind of ownership of funds and transfer of funds. So that's where it's the most useful at the moment, and, you know, generally being used the most. And that, as I said, can also apply to digital, you know, images and digital art and all that, and you know, 3D art as well. And so, like I said, for things like interoperability, for anything, you know, it's like the Mona Lisa, right? How do you know that you have the original Mona Lisa? Like, I have a printout of the Mona Lisa in my house. It's obviously not the original. And all of you would know that because, you know, if the original Mona Lisa is on a blockchain, then everyone knows that I can't have the original because the Louvre Museum has the original. You know, so that's the equivalent. So once you put your art on the blockchain, for instance, it becomes the equivalent of kind of having the Mona Lisa in the Louvre, where you know that that's the only original version of it. And only if the original person sells it, then that data of that transaction is stored within the blockchain as well. So you can see that not only does, okay, Ashwini owns this image today, but you can also see that, you know, Sanjana sold this image to Ashwini in like 1927. So you can see all of that data, and that's basically what the blockchain is, to kind of put it simply. But yeah, it also takes obviously a lot of kind of carbon emissions to store this data, because, you know, to keep our computers running. So for instance, to store this blockchain data, you need to keep your computer running all the time. And it's, in fact, it's a GPU that keeps running all the time. And so if all of us have that image, then that means that all of us are storing that same image on all of our computers, and we're running our computers all the time. And so the carbon emissions really kind of compound, which is why there's a lot of debate around NFTs and blockchain now, and about the sustainability aspect of it as well. That's a very kind of simplified answer, but I hope that kind of explains a little bit about what it is. Yeah?
Yes, ma'am. Can you explain about NFT also?
Sure. So NFT is basically any piece of art or any digital asset that's on the blockchain. So as I explained, you know, the image that I have, for example, the digital image that's on the blockchain, that image itself is an NFT, or anything. You know, it can even be a song. For example, if I sing a song and upload it on the blockchain, then that song itself becomes an NFT. Does that make sense? Do you have any other questions?
You shared YouTube links, right? You showed in the PPT. Can you share it in the group so that we can watch later?
Sure, I will. And actually, because this is the first session and it's an introductory session, I'm covering quite a lot. I'm also recording this session, so this session will be available for you to watch later on as well. The future sessions doesn't really make sense because it's more interactive and more project-based, but this one will be available. And I'll also share the slides. I'll share the slides once everything is over, since you know the slides are all in one. But yeah, you'll have access to it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Anyone have any other questions?
Ma'am, chat box.
Okay. It's relevant, but is there any way we can integrate blockchain into physical supply chain to move? That's an excellent question, and actually there are companies that have tried to do that. There's one company called Provenance that actually did a very kind of famous project on that. So the thing is, with blockchains, based on the research that's been done so far, it's more effective when it comes to digital goods rather than goods that are actually tangible and physical, like you know the physical supply chain. But there was, you know, the project that Provenance did, for example, they did actually use it to track different stages of the supply chain for exactly that, for transparency, for you know sustainability. So for instance, in the fashion industry, there are so many layers to the supply chain, right? Like right from, for example, if you take just a small button, you know, what is that button made of? Is it made of metal? So where is that steel made? Where is that iron mined from? Like that could be all over the world. You never know what kind of mining process has gone on, right? Like maybe from that level it's unsustainable. Or with the cotton, like the farming of the cotton, maybe it's a very kind of pesticide heavy farming process. Maybe it hasn't been grown organically. And so it's very much, there's so many stages to the supply chains. They really tried to see whether blockchain can try to hold all of that information and try to figure out, yeah, really from the first stage, it's very difficult to just, without the blockchain, to track every single stage of the supply chain because there are so many different steps. So with blockchain, what they did is, the problem is, so somebody does still need to enter that data into the blockchain. So for example, let's take, you know, the cotton, like a cotton shirt. So the cotton that's being farmed, whether or not it's using pesticides, whether you know it's being grown in India or whether it's being grown in Uzbekistan, like that data needs to be entered. So for example, if you have, you know, if you give a farmer access to a blockchain wallet and you say, okay, when this garment is made, if it's made by you as an organic farmer, you can enter this data onto the blockchain and that gets saved, right? And once that's locked in, nobody can change it. So that information is saved on the blockchain forever and everyone can see that information. And then at the next stage, you know, that goes to a weaver who's actually weaving that cotton. And again, that person, you know, based on, say you want to make sure that that person is being paid well and that, you know, that's an ethical way in which the cotton was being woven. Again, you can give them access to the blockchain wallet and they can enter the information and they can lock the information. And so on. You can go with, you know, next is the garment factory where you're sewing it. And the end consumer, when you buy the garment, you can actually see all of these different stages on the blockchain. So in that sense, it's very, very like, you know, effective because there's no other way to really track that process in that way. Right? And the way the Provenance did it, eventually they had an RFID chip inside the garment. So if you scan that chip, you could actually see the information about all the blockchain, including the fact that finally, you know, you bought that garment. You know, you can see that as well. And if you resell that garment, you can see that as well. So in theory, yes, it can definitely be used for the physical supply chain, and it's in a very interesting way. But based on, you know, the project that Provenance did, they thought that there's a lot more to it. It's quite complicated because, I mean, even now we try to ensure transparency in the supply chain and sustainability, but it doesn't always work that way because, you know, maybe that farmer doesn't have access to the tools required to upload to the blockchain because that's quite advanced technology. Or maybe there's also, like we see all the time how, maybe there's certain certifications that people have gotten through bribery, or maybe that these blockchain passcodes are passed along to other people who are not supposed to be using it, in which case the blockchain gets tampered, and then all of that information is basically it's not actually true information. So I think if you're using the blockchain in a kind of very authentic way, in the way it's meant to be used, exactly by the rules, and everyone along the way has access to the blockchain, then in an idealistic world, it's a great way to keep track of physical supply chains as well. But right now, that's still quite an early stage process. I hope that makes sense, but really, really good, really interesting question.
Is this something same as digital product passport that we?
It is. It's quite similar, yes, and it goes hand in hand with it. So there are some companies like Eon, for example, that you might have come across that do digital passports, and so they actually do digital passports, but without blockchain. So they simply, you can obviously have the exact same process where you just track it, right? You just write it down and you trust the person before you, and you say, yeah, okay, so this person farmed it, this person did this person did that. And that's also a pretty valid way to do things, right? Because normally, that's how we've been doing it for some time now, and that's what digital passports are about. And it has gotten quite accurate as well. Again, you can upload the information digitally, but even without a blockchain. So that way, as long as a farmer, for example, has a smartphone, they're able to actually access that and add to the digital passport. So yeah, it's basically, it's the same thing of really keeping record, except it's not on the blockchain. And I think for Eon, for example, so Natasha Frank was actually working with Microsoft at the same time that I was working with Microsoft, and Eon has done so well since. But I remember at the time she was exploring whether or not to use blockchain for her digital passport technology, and she decided against it because, first of all, of the accessibility issue, but also because of the sustainability issue, and she felt like the difference between having it with blockchain or having it without blockchain at this point doesn't really make a big difference. As long as you're tracking that information, you're in a pretty good place. So yeah, that was kind of, but that's a really interesting question again, because digital passports are also very kind of, they're being used more and more by different brands, and again, something very worth kind of looking into, whether or not it relates to blockchain. Anyone else have any questions, or shall we move on?
So, so I have a question regarding the VR headset. So, as you mentioned, we can move our garment to VR headsets. So, what's the right type of format that you use, like OBJ, SBX, or GLB? Because I had tried to do in AR and VR thing, but the difficulty that I came across was I can import the garment, I can see it in VRAR, but when it comes to animation export, so it's have few of errors.
Yeah.
So sometimes the texture got misplaced due to might some UV error or something. Sometimes the animation got flicker or something. So what's the best case for exporting this kind of stuff? Like I tried Adobe doing it in Adobe Aero. So all of these VR and AR platforms has some size limit, like the pixel counts and the like the pixel count, size, the polygon type. So what's the best case scenario for the size and the export format?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this briefly, and maybe we can continue to chat about this a little bit later, because I think a lot of the people in the call may not be aware of this, so I kind of don't want them to be too lost. But I think definitely within VR, with kind of still 3D models, mainly GLB that I've used in the past, or kind of FBX with the moving ones. But I think, to be honest, each platform, it really depends. I haven't used Aero very much. I think I've used it maybe once or twice. But yeah, again, UV mapping can be a little bit of an issue as well. I think Blender is a good place to kind of bake your UV map in, so maybe that's worth checking out. There are a lot of tutorials online about baking your UV map using Blender. But also, another thing at the end of the day, a lot of these do have errors simply because They're new platforms. They're still at a more experimental stage with the VR headsets as well. They're still quite new technology, and I think we do need to wait a little bit more for them to advance. I think even just in terms of computing power, we're not there yet in terms of being able to have the computing power to really kind of run these animations in virtual reality on high quality. And that's something that companies like Meta are, really working towards. It's kind of their biggest goal to do that. But I think, unfortunately, we sometimes just need to be patient and understand that some of these things maybe don't work, maybe glitch, and just kind of, do our best with what we've got at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that kind of answers your question. But I'm happy to, if you DM me to discuss this further later on as well. I just don't want to bore the others who maybe are not at the level you're at yet to be able to kind of understand what we're talking about. So.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure. Okay, so for now I'm going to move on to the brainstorm session. And we can always come back and discuss more questions later. And also, yeah, for now I've closed off the group just so my information about the sessions doesn't get lost, so only I can post on the group. But feel free to DM me if you have any questions, and we can discuss it. But also, after these sessions are over, which is, in a month is when these sessions will be over, I'll be opening up the group so we can all post on there as well. We can all respond to each other's questions. It can be like a community. So. Okay, let's brainstorm. Okay, so we're going to be doing, as you know, a workshop we're going to be starting on Thursday, and then we're going to be working on it again in 2 weeks' time, or I think, no, next Thursday. Yeah, so this Thursday plus next Thursday, we're going to be working on it. And for that, first, I want you all to do a bit of brainstorming around kind of, this doesn't have to be realistic at all, but I want you to come up with, a couple of ideas for, and again, these can be very raw ideas. You don't have to finalize on an idea today, but I just want you to start brainstorming for either an idea that, for example, is a startup that solves a problem using technology. I obviously described Artsy that I was working on, and there's lots of inspiration in the links that I've shared as well. So an idea for a startup that solves a problem, or as one of you mentioned, using blockchain for digital passports for the supply chain. That's a really interesting way to kind of solve a problem using technology as well. Or an idea for a space. It can be a VR art gallery. It can be a retail space. It can be a museum. Do you have an idea for a really interesting space? So there's that. Or it can be, a digital fashion brand, something like Republique, right? Like, or an augmented fashion brand even. So do you have an idea for something like that? Or you can also come up with how you think a certain existing brand can use technology. I would love if, especially if there's an Indian brand, for example, an upcoming Indian brand that you think can use, augmented reality to their advantage, then you can come up with an idea for that as well. But I just want us to all kind of explore and just come up with ideas, and not just individually, but I want us to actually collectively as well. Like, all of us can come up with ideas, but I want us to comment on each other's ideas, to add to each other's ideas, because I think especially in the creative industries, there's a lot of taboo around sharing your ideas, and people feel like my idea is going to be copied and things. But I personally really believe in sharing your idea, because you're the one who's most passionate about your idea. It's very unlikely anyone's going to copy it and do that better than you, and I think you will always gain from hearing someone else's perspective on your idea. So we're going to make a little mind map to brainstorm these topics. So if you can just go to this website, if you can just, I can copy it in the chat. You can click on it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen in the meantime. Okay, has everyone managed to access that link? Yes. Okay, wonderful. Okay, if anyone has any issues, please, you can either talk to me or you can put it in the chat. Okay, so have you used Miro before, or is anyone completely new to Miro? Okay, so it's quite simple. So you essentially on the left-hand side you have these little sticky notes, and you have text, and you can basically add different sticky notes, add text, add arrows as well, and just jot down your ideas. So yeah, I would love for us to all take the next 10 minutes and just jot down some ideas. So you can go anywhere on the board and you can add your own, like you can see me doing here. You can add a little sticky note and just say idea, for example, and then you can start building stuff around it. And also, if you see anyone else's idea and you want to add something to it, you can add a sticky note and add your idea next to theirs as well if you have an idea for them. So I'd love to just brainstorm. And eventually, I just want us to come up with the craziest ideas, because we're going to make a sort of WebXR prototype for that in the next 2 sessions, but it's going to be a very simple one. So yeah, you can essentially come up with anything, because we're not actually going to be building this. It's more about the idea, and I want you to all come up with something really exciting. Because if we're not going to actually build the real thing, we might as well make it really exciting and make it really, really crazy, right? So yes, everyone, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes, and I'll see you guys again in 10 minutes. We can look at some of the ideas that we've come up with, yeah? Okay, let's wrap up in the next 2 minutes. Okay, all right. Thank you all so much. Some really interesting ideas here. So what I'm going to do in the next session, we're going to start working on a web XR project. So we're going to start building a space related to what you've thought of. It doesn't matter if yours is an idea for a startup or anything. It doesn't have to be an idea for a space, but we'll start building around it anyway, start building more ideas around that. So I want you to kind of try to narrow down on maybe 1 or 2 ideas that you're really interested in. And you can continue to post on the Miro board as well today and tomorrow. And day after tomorrow, we'll come together again and take that idea further and start working on a WebXR workshop. In the meantime, also, I'm going to put in the link to Frame VR, which is the platform that we're going to be using next week. So feel free to explore it in your own time in the meantime. Also, the second link that I'm putting, framevr.io/digital fashion, is the space that I showed you. It can maybe give you a few ideas on what you can create within that space. So you can come up with some ideas for what you want to make next week. Okay, all right, everyone. I think anyone have any more questions before we wrap up the session for today? No? All right. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you, all of you. I feel like that was a really good first session. At least I really enjoyed it. I think there were some really interesting questions, and the ideas I'm seeing on Miro already sounds super, super interesting. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining, and I'll see you again on Thursday. So day after tomorrow, Thursday, is the second session. It'll probably be a slightly shorter session than this one, maybe just over an hour. And it'll be the same for the session after that, which is the 21st, which is next Thursday. Again, we should be done in maybe an hour or so. It's more to continue to work on our spaces. So yeah, I'll see you guys soon. And then we'll have a 1 week gap, and then we'll continue with our last 3 sessions with the guest speakers. So yeah, I'll see you all day after tomorrow. Again, same time, same place, 8 p.m., the same link. And thank you all again for coming. All right, bye. Good night, everyone. All right. Thank you. Good night. Bye.